The legendary Jenny Joseph said, "When I am old, I shall wear purple." She got it right. She chose purple, the colour of St. Michael's. But why did she wait till she was old? I asked my 19-year-old grandson this question, and he said, well, it depends on what she meant by old. He said, I thought I was old when I was 18. The June edition of one of the journals of the British Psychological Society carries on its cover a massive street sign which reads, "This year, thousands of men will die from stubbornness." So is this the word for Father's Day? Well, another father, Dr. George Vaillant, whom I've mentioned here many times, gives an alternative. He wrote, "Nevertheless, hope adds a desperately important ingredient to our living. Hope. Hope," he said, "is the very foundation block of all human development. Hope gives meaning to the flowering of mature generativity. Hope provides the promise of the future to us and to our survivors that allows us all to die in peace." So as we pass through our one-off life, some of us are ridiculously, even resentfully, stubborn. Stubborn on certain things, stubborn on everything. But some of us, alternatively, are carriers of hope. They're carriers of hope. Hope on certain things, or they bring a wide spectrum of hope in positive emotions and actions to all of life. It was in the spirit of hope, I think, that Jenny Joseph chose the colour purple of St. Michael's for her garment. And the Bible's epistle to the Colossians that I read today said, "May you wear the colourful garments of God's people, the garments of kindness and gentleness, of love, all the garments that reflect the emotions of people who want to keep hope alive, who want to find some joy when often things can be so heavy." Many people ask, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be fully alive? How can we understand this life that we're given? And how are we to live it better, enjoyably? Different thinkers have said, well, it goes in stages. Perhaps if you know the stages, where you are at a certain stage, you might do it better. And so the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes said, yes, there is a time for this and there's a time for that. There's a time for everything under heaven. But get your times right. Shakespeare set out stages of life. Freud and many other people from the world of psychology have said, yes, human life is a matter of growth and regression. It's a matter of traumas and recovery. It is a matter of living and dying, and there are stages through it. Erik Erikson, one of the distinguished psychologists of a previous era, set out 8 stages, from infancy through to adulthood. Well, in this address today, I'm going to set out my 8 stages of life after retirement. That's very different from Erikson's stages. After retirement, through to the end of what we call the 4th age. In terms of years, it might run through some 40 years. And we can let them all just happen as they happen, or we can be more informed. We can get more knowledge. We can be more prepared in knowing what to expect and how we might live them better, more effectively, more enjoyably. So what will we say? Some people, of course, will say, well, this address is not for me, so you've already turned off. Turn back on for a minute. I know you're not yet 40, but you will hope to be more than 40. And you will know you are good observers, all of you. You can be good observers of others. You're helpers of others. Of course, and you're also the avoiders of others because of the stage that they're at. Some people are joyful examples of people really alive at 99, 103, and some people are stubborn at 70 or even at 60. We all know this, and you've heard people say it. We used to be strong tennis players. We're too old for that now. So you are now at a different stage. You used to do that. You used to be a gardener. You used to be a teacher. You used to be a nurse. You used to be a mother. And on Father's Day, some will say, no, I used to be a father. You know, this used to be. What are you now? I hear some say of their husbands, you're not the man you used to be. So you might well resign on everything, unless you say, that's true, I'm now in a different stage, and you haven't noticed. And then I hear other people remark, what's happening to me? I don't want to look in the mirror. It's too late now to do anything. Look at me. I'm past my best. If only I could, oh, there it is, notice. If only I could go back to an earlier stage of my life, to that different stage. Well, in the Old Testament story I read to you today, Genesis chapter 18, Abram and Sarah were entertaining some travelers. And one announced that Sarah was going to have a baby. And she laughed her head off, saying, that's ridiculous. I'm long past having babies. Curiously, we're not told. We're not meant to ask too many questions. We see Sarah apparently thought she was past childbearing age, a stage in the female life course. So she laughed the apparently impossible should be possible. And so with us, when some gift is unexpectedly put in front of us, will we do as Sarah did? Laugh derisively, unbelievingly? Or will we take the gift and see what we can make of it? How will we now live our life in the light of the gift that we've been given? And so to my 8 stages, from retirement through to the 4th age. I'm going to put them in four, so that we can put our heads around them. So don't be too intimidated by 8 points. Stage 1. One stage of life is over. I'm talking about that moment when you say, I'm retired. You can't go back. That's it. A new stage is about to arrive on you. Like Sarah, you can say, don't be ridiculous, and laugh and laugh. You can turn aside and say, well, that's it. Stage 1 is to now reshape your life. I call it reshape lessons. Reshaping your life. It is a word to describe the state of between adolescence and obsolescence, reshapeolescence. And it is urgently on us at the moment we say it's time to retire. You need to reshape your life or you're going to wither away. Well, you might wither away anyway, but do some reshaping before that happens too quickly. It is the most challenging, the most exciting, the most colourful time of the lifespan. You've had several opportunities along the way to do this and this and this, but sure enough, this is the one where you're going to live or die. Put on the new garments of this new stage of life. You reshape, or you get lost in your regrets and your resentments, and you're listening to too many requiems. Put them all away. I hate requiems, because they're all reflecting on you know what. Realize that this is your resurrection symphony. Yours. This is your moment to recite the words like those of artist John Olson. I've recited them here many times. He says it's a terrible state of affairs when you don't understand the grace of a new morning. Stage 1, reshaping your life. Stage 2, well, if you're going to be in the stage, you're either in or out. But do please close the door. Stage 2, we're in the midst of a paradox. The paradox of our recurring loneliness and the astonishing, soothing resources that are given to help us deal with that ache of loneliness. Now, I'm going to be speaking about loneliness at greater depth in the Sage meetings, so I'm not going to dwell on it any further here. We're going to note the stage 2, the paradox of our aching loneliness and the power of those soothing resources to help us cope with that. Stage 3, it is the stage of reflection and resolve. We're at this stage of reflecting on what we have and what we will never have. I hear my inner murmuring saying, I wish I could live that stage all over again, and I'd do it differently. I wish I could do it without the mistakes I made. I wish I could gather some of the people of my past together and say to them, well, what would I say to them? I wish. But just as I'm saying, I wish, the raven in Edgar Allan Poe's poem appears to haunt me. And I turn and there is the raven. He's in the doorway. 'Tis some visitor, I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. And the bird carried its simple message, nevermore, nevermore. So in this stage of reflection, there must be a resolve. Otherwise we just go on reflecting. There must be a resolve to live life in all its fullness. Martin Heidegger, the existentialist, said, his word was, we have to resolve to face our death. And I accept that. Of course, we have to resolve to face our death. But how will we resolve to face our death? By resolving to live life now in all its fullness. Number 4. In this 4th stage, we come up against the shifting of the tectonic plates like an earthquake. But the metaphorical tectonic plates, or they are existential plates. The reshuffling of the plates of our existence. If you have children, they go like birds flying from the nest. If you have friendships, they change, like the sun going in behind the clouds. If you lived as if everything would be the same, you'll find that illness, catastrophe, and various troubles will strike you. And there'll be like a shifting of the plates because nothing is the same. This is the stage of refinding yourself. Different from reshaping earlier on. Now it's the strengthening of the self, soothing of the self, finding the safety zones of the self, finding the protections for the self. It's looking at this issue of redefining yourself in the light of all that has been happening, of the losses, of the tragedies, of the traumas, of all that's happened. Number five comes in. They all come in positives and negatives. The negatives for us the negative is well known. It is the shrinking stage. It is the downsizing stage. Or it is the flying buttresses stage. It is the stage of space. In this stage, we shrink. I'm shrinking in physical size. We shrink in our ambitions and our aspirations. We shrink in our life out there with others. Or in this stage, stage 5, we can come alive to the world of space. Now, I don't mean space travel so much, although you can include it. But I mean our space. The space of life shrinks, you see. In my suburb where I live, right outside my garage door, there was until recently a perfectly good 3-bedroom modern home. Almost overnight, it was wiped to the ground, and a vast castle has been built on the same block. No garden anymore, of course not. We don't have gardens. They're too difficult to keep, and we're too lazy or we're too tired at this stage of our life. So the house takes up the whole block, so big that you need a motorbike to go up and down the corridors. So that's space, you see. But then I know others who've lived in those spaces, and then eventually I visit them. And the only space they have is a small one room. So there is the spaces of life. I knew space in a different way when I was a kid in the country. I'd stand out and look at the starry skies overhead. Nothing is like that, the vast space of it all. And then I saw it in different form when I visited Cologne Cathedral, remembering how human beings once took refuge way down in the crypt of that place as they're trying to escape the Gestapo of that time. They went down into the crypt, still believing in their God, even though he was silent. But if you come out of the crypt in that cathedral, you stand in awe of the imagination of those who envisaged the architecture of this extraordinary space, and the imagination that installed those flying buttresses in that vaulted space, inspired by biblical words and symbols that would be there for future generations. Through the wars and the traumas and the terrible times, the dream held. The human being lifted into the context of what the existentialists called the category of space. I wrote about it way back in the 1960s, and I described it as one of the vital experiences, especially when we feel so diminished or fragmented in our life and our being, from the realities of shrinkage. we contemplate the inspiration and celebration of space. Not only physical space, but of our emotional space. Number 6. As we grow older, we get a glimpse of a spiritual definition of everything. We've been talking, as you know, in recent times about our spirituality. But here I'm talking not only about our spirituality, but of the spirituality of everything. Everything. And so I mentioned today the elephants, 96 of them killed every day. And there's something of damaged spirituality there within the world. I'm talking of something more than a spiritual awakening. It is to look at our spiritual redefinition as human beings, of life in the world, of the animal kingdom, and of the ecology of the globe. I got a glimpse of it in the kid's story of Rumpelstiltskin. He thought he had the answer. He thought he was in charge of himself and other people. He thought he could outbid the other. But just as he was in a gloating mode, he discovered he had to relate to others and to his world in a very different way, or disappear altogether. And he disappeared. Many do that. They disappear. They lose contact. Or they rediscover. They refine. There's a spiritual redefinition of what life in the broad, in the large picture can be. We all want to hold on to what we thought life was about. But this is about this comprehensive spiritual redefinition of everything. 7. 7 is the fourth age, and we don't like it. But if you're going to live, you're going to be part of it. It is the age of decline, dependence, dementia, and dying. It is also the age of denial and despondency and depression if we're not careful. These stages all have a negative and a positive side. As we age well, we acknowledge that apart from being engulfed by the fast-moving death and decline, apart from that, is there something else? Some of our capacities will remain fully functioning. Some of our physical and mental capacities will decline. And frequently we will wonder whether we're on a pathway of unnecessary acceptance, or whether, like Dylan Thomas's challenge to his father, we hear that inner voice saying, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rage at close of day." Which will we do? Or will we hear Ralph Waldo Emerson say, "It is time to be old, to take in sail. The God of the bounds who sets to seas ashore came to me in his fatal rounds and said, 'No more.'" The fourth age is one where we can be abandoned to the realities of life, or we can realize we're surrounded by the communities of care, and we need them. We will need them. Number 8. The 8th stage awaits one word from us, really. It was uttered well by Dag Hammarskjöld, one-time Secretary General of the United Nations. He said, for all that has been, thanks. But many people are not in a position nor of the mind to say thanks. So if life did not deliver the plum you thought it might have promised, what then of this eighth stage? You know, if some people did everything right, but in the end life closed in on them with terrible suffering, shocking suffering, and came with extended, undignified dying. The sense of humour they once had is gone. So the final thing requires of us one last thing. It certainly does. In the words of Tagore, I give back the keys of my door, for a summons has come, and I am ready for my journey. That is something more than resignation, more than gratitude, though gratitude is there. It is a very normal, reluctant release, freedom, a release into the flow of all that is beyond us, that we cannot understand. And there we can be surrounded by the community of faith that gives life a meaning while we live and gives an intelligent conclusion to our end. So the eighth stage of older years turns the tired course of growing old into the possibility of something exciting, the possibility of an evolving experience. And here they are. Number one, to reshape your life as soon as possible. As soon as you run into the changes of life, reshape. Rediscover, they're all start with the letter R. Rediscover those soothing resources to soothe your emptiness and loneliness. Number three, yes, experience your reflection and also your resolve. When all the foundations are shaking, refine yourself. Number five, re-experience your space, your experience, your existential space. Number six, redefine the spirituality of everything. Number six. Number seven, remodel. Yes, remodel your fourth age. Rather than seeing it all as decline and downhill, remember. Yes, remember. To remodel the fourth age so that you feel you're surrounded by caring resources. And number eight, there is the release. The richness of gratitude taking you into that good release, where you release yourself, you release other people, and you're released in the whole of your being. Would you please stand? And so I invite you to gather round the altar and to realize there that we're here surrounded by the community of caring and the community of faith. I invite you to sing the communion hymn.